Karen Read, the so-called happiest murder defendant in the country, may have fewer reasons to smile tonight after a day of testimony in her ongoing trial that appeared to boost the prosecution's case. Two witnesses who took the stand seemingly bolstered the prosecution's argument that Read hit and killed her ex-boyfriend with her SUV in January of 2022. A neurosurgeon testified that the head injuries John O'Keefe died from were the result of a backwards fall onto the hard ground. Dr. Isaac Wolf also said the injuries did not appear to come from a weapon, implicitly corroborating the claim that O'Keefe was knocked down by Read's vehicle. Then a forensic expert with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab resumed her testimony from yesterday. Christina Hanley testified that pieces of clear and red plastic that were found on O'Keefe's clothes were consistent with the plastic found from Read's taillight. And to make matters more interesting, the judge paused testimony briefly this morning to meet individually with each of the jurors about what she called, quote, an issue that had come to her attention. Joining us now is Ronnie Estanislao. He was a juror in the first Karen Read trial, and a criminal defense attorney's been following this case very closely, Joe Tamburino. Joe, Ronnie, great to have both of you here. Hey, Joe, I want to start with the way the day started today, which was the judge sort of shocking everybody by saying, I need to meet with each of the jurors individually, saying this issue had come up. And then she said later on that it was very, very important not to discuss any elements of this case. What do you think is going on here?
Well, thanks for having me on. You know, it was shocking. And normally when a judge, and this doesn't happen too often, in the middle of a trial, in the middle of the day or the morning says, hey, jurors, I have to talk to you privately, that means something's up. Now, many times this would involve, say, a juror talking about the case with other jurors when they weren't supposed to, or perhaps a juror receiving information from outside of the courtroom, or perhaps a juror trying to contact someone outside of the courtroom when they shouldn't be. It probably wasn't something very serious because after this discussion, they simply went back into the jury room and then started hearing the case. But normally that's what it's about. Something got to the judge's attention and she wants to basically tell the jury to make sure they just listen to the evidence and not communicate with anyone.
Well, either it was something serious and she found there was nothing to it. It could have been that as well. But good news that we didn't strike any of the jurors. So let's get to the testimony. Ronnie, you were a juror in the first trial. You've been following the second trial very closely. You do not think that Karen Read, you've told me on the show before, after being a juror in the first trial, you do not think that Karen Read is guilty of murder. But today we heard testimony from this brain surgeon. He was a key witness for the prosecution in the first trial, and he detailed how Officer O'Keefe's injuries were consistent with falling backwards and hitting his head hard, not being hit with a weapon. So how did that testimony go over with the jury the first time around?
So the first time around, at least for myself, it seemed to me that he did strike his head falling backwards, but there was nothing conclusive to indicate that the vehicle actually struck Mr. O'Keefe that caused him to go and fall backwards. And that was the piece that was inconsistent. There was no injuries that indicated that. And even with the testimony, both the medical examiner in terms of the mechanism of what caused him to die, not giving any kind of information in her amendment, and the testimony today, to me, it resonates that it still is inconsistent of what was the cause of death.
So you're saying you have a problem. You have a problem with the fact that, okay, he fell and hit his head and that's what killed him. You still don't know, and you don't think they've proven what caused him to fall?
That's correct. To me, right now, there's not enough information to what caused him to fall.
Okay, so what, and then we have this other witness from the crime lab talking about these pieces of plastic that were found on Officer O'Keefe's body that seemed to match pieces of plastic from Karen Read's taillight. How did that fly with you?
So in terms of the science behind it, each time they keep saying that it is consistent with the taillight, but or any taillight that has similar properties. So it doesn't say that they've matched it to her taillight is what resonates through me. I don't know if that's what's going to resonate to the other jurors as well, but that's what resonated to me, and it's still the same. The other thing that we always considered is that the emergency room floor as well as the ambulance floors are not the best or most sterile environment. And if there's broken taillight because they go to accident scenes or other individuals, patients go to these areas, there could be broken taillight that's there that may be consistent. So again, doesn't resonate to me that it is the cause, and it doesn't connect yet.
And just and Joe, I'm going to get to you in a second because I got several legal questions, but I'm just curious, Ronnie, was this the way you discussed this in the jury room in the first trial? Like what you're telling me right now? Like, well, that's not a sterile environment. That could have come from any place.
We kind of discussed that. We bantered about it during that time during deliberation.
All right, Joe, you said that today was not a good day for the defense for Karen Read. Why?
Well, for everything that you've just mentioned, and this gentleman would be a very good juror for the defense. There's no doubt about it, because what he's saying is he wants absolute proof that this piece of plastic found on Mr. O'Keefe is from this taillight of Karen Read's SUV. And remember, a trial isn't about absolute proof. Nothing could be absolute proof. A trial is about beyond a reasonable doubt. Does the prosecutor have enough evidence to get beyond a reasonable doubt, not beyond all doubt? And what happened today is that you have these pieces of plastic that is completely consistent with Karen Read's vehicle. Now, can you say it is exactly the same plastic from that vehicle? No, because there are so many vehicles out there that have similar plastics. But you look at the totality of circumstances. There's no other evidence that there was any other broken taillight car around him. And there's no other evidence that at the hospital there were taillight pieces hanging out in the hallway. And there's no other evidence that at the hospital at the time they were taking care of other people who were hit by some type of SUV. So there's a lot of information that came out today that helped the prosecution.
Well, we can see why this case has captivated so many across the country. Ronnie Estanislao and Joe Tamburino, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.